Well, the biggest problem with the ash, the very fine particles, are basically very small glass particles. So they're very sharp. They can cause respiratory problems, irritation to lungs, but also to skin, to eyes. In addition, there might also be some chemical elements, such as some fluorine, for example, that might be attached to that ash, and that might also be released and add to the contamination of the water. So those are the main problems that might be related to the ash.
I know you're not a doctor, but it sounds very scary indeed.
Yes, so it's important that if people have access to masks, that they try to wear them as much as possible to try and prevent inhaling too much of the ash. Particularly people with weak lungs, with weak respiratory systems, they should really be trying to protect themselves as much as they can. Already seen it being in eruption since late December, but mostly at a lower level of intensity. And so it suddenly went bigger, basically. First on the 14th of January and then again on the 15th. So there had been some sort of pre-warning. It had already been erupting, but then the big blasts really caught us by surprise. Now, the biggest problem with the fact that it is an underwater volcano, most of it at least. And that makes it extremely challenging to monitor it. Normally with volcanoes, we try to install all kinds of instruments to monitor, to try and detect changes that might suggest magma is on the move. But with an underwater volcano, that's almost impossible to do. We simply don't have the technology available to be able to do that.
So say?
Well, on the one hand, of course, the inhabited islands of Tonga are a bit further away from the volcano. And in some ways that is an advantage. So we don't expect very thick ash cover. We don't expect meters and meters of ash cover. But as you already noticed, the islands are very vulnerable to even small amounts of ash, much more than the island of La Palma was. So everything really depends on the context of the island, of the communities, and how resilient or how vulnerable they are. The biggest difference in terms of eruptive style is that the La Palma eruption was much more gentle, actually, even if it lasted a long time. So it was much less vigorous, explosive, but it was much closer to inhabited land, and therefore it had a lot of impact. So everything depends on the nature of the eruption, but also the resilience and the vulnerability of the communities that are at risk.